Thank you everyone for joining us. Once again, this is the 4-part series of how to identify and reduce allergen exposure. The first part today is the anatomy of a building's indoor air, and this is being presented by myself, Ronnie Iraq, and my laboratory director, Dr. Rajiv Sahai. Okay. So today, we will be going over an overview on the current status of indoor environments to address various aspects that impact the general public on a day-to-day basis. The main and important aspects of this topic will be covered in 4 parts. Each episode will be 30 minutes. Contents of the presentation will be made available to all who attend the webinar or are interested afterwards. A certificate of attendance by EDLab at Pure Air Control Services Incorporated will be provided to those who will attend this webinar. And at the end of this webinar, we will have a raffle for 5 $10 Starbucks gift cards, which will be held after the webinar for attendees who correctly answer the quiz questions. And we will go ahead and have 5 questions throughout this webinar, so make sure you're paying attention so you can go ahead and get your name entered into that contest. Today specifically, we're going to cover the indoor environment, indoor air, the historical prospect, an illustration of it, the prospect and optimization of the indoor air. An illustrated account of this topic is described in Allergy and Allergen Immunotherapy, New Mechanisms and Strategies. As you can see here, this picture of the book on this slide is published by the Academic Press and the CRC Press. Within the book, it is chapter 6, and the pages are 163 to 226 in the book. If you would like more information on it, it can be obtained via email or phone call on the contact address listed at the end of this presentation. Now we'll begin. Dr. Sahai, why don't you go ahead and define for us what the indoor environment means?
Thank you, Ronnie, and good afternoon to our viewers. This is really a good point where I can give some background information. I'm pretty sure today we have various background people attending this seminar, so I'm going to real quickly touch upon the definition. Many times people talk about indoor environment, but if you want to describe, they start listing one factor, other factor, or various interactive points, but it is prudent and it is necessary to understand what actually the indoor environment is. As you can see in this particular slide, I try to define the indoor environment. What basically it is a physical space within a natural or man-made environment separated by the limiting structures, door, etc. is referred as indoor environment. Well, nowadays, I'm pretty sure all of you have witnessed that one term is popping here and there and very regularly on regular basis. That is IEQ. That is basically stand for indoor environment quality. And what basically it is referring the suitability of the environment that relate to the comfort, safety, and health of the occupants. So that's a very precise definition of indoor environment, Ronnie. Now, this is the definition of indoor environment, but many times people start thinking, okay, this is indoor environment. So what is the another factor which basically influence when we do the indoor environment is indoor air. So in my next slide, I'm going to describe it, but I believe Ronnie has a trivia question at this point.
Yes, I'm going to go ahead and launch the question now for everybody. And it should be up on your screen now. Go ahead and pick the best answer for IEQ relates to what? Comfort, safety, health, or all of the above. Go ahead and leave it up for about another 5 seconds. And we'll go ahead and share the results that everyone chose. And it looks like 100% of people got the correct answer. It is all of the above. So now We'll continue with the slides.
So really they are paying attention. So
Yeah.
you cannot afford to like miss a single important point here. And the point being indoor air. So we have had some understanding of indoor environment. Now, think in that way that indoor environment is a big set and indoor air is a subset of that. How that relates? That indoor air basically is the air within that closed environment, and that typically referred as indoor air. Well, I have described the indoor environment quality. Likewise, the quality of air within or around the building or a closed structure also relate to health, comfort, and other conditions of the occupants is typically referred as IAQ, that I'm pretty sure many of you would have witnessed in news channel, media outlets, and other publications.
All right, so we built a little bit of a foundation now talking about the indoor air and indoor environment. Is there any sort of historical significance or history about it that you can share with us?
Sure, definitely. This has a very deep-rooted history, and that's why I had a hard time to summarize it. Basically, history can date back from the era of human civilization to the modern age. So for ease of convenience, I have taken this historical prospect in 3 different time scale. The first one is the ancient time, meaning it's a very previous or very beginning of the civilization. Medieval, meaning the middle period, and then the modern period. Well, let me first give some very good information that how people start thinking about indoor environment or indoor air as such. Well, if you look in the human civilization or race of civilization, the inhabitation started in houses and shelters. So people start living within a closed structure. And that's where they try to find the balance that what is good for them, what is not so good for them. And that's the break point, you can say, that when people start debating that what is good, what is not good. And many a time we do not have a solid or concrete answer, so there is some murky point there, and that what may create some trouble. Well, going on that aspect, think about before Christ, 460 to 377 era, people start thinking that the polluted air may be detrimental to the health, impacting the health. Actually, Hippocrates has had some reference on that, and that's what is being taken. So that takes us back in the history. Well, in 9855 BC, Lucretius also has come up with that harmful smoke damaging people's health. Not only that, in the biblical era, in the Leviticus, as I mentioned, that 14:34 to 57 talks about the dampness in the building, sort of giving the clue on the mold. So that was not something which we start discussing in the recent time, but people are discussing it from that old time. Now, in the medieval era, when they start really logically analyzing the situation and other health-related factors, then the basis of the epidemiology come, and epidemiological study start prudent and start noticing or start recording the relationship with health, hygiene in terms of environment. So real foundation on this particular topic started not in even the modern era, but you can say comfortably that it is the medieval era when people start thinking. So now what happened in the modern era? this topic gets so or gains so much importance because one very important factor come under consideration, and that is ventilation. And that can easily be distinguishable between natural and man-made ventilation. When I use the word natural ventilation, that was just God-given. But when we talk about the man-made ventilation, that energy and other component goes in there, and we try to derive very optimal situation by controlling the ventilation. And doing so, some problems start also popping up. Well, you can see the importance that the World Health Organization has taken a very serious topic, health impact assessment due to the environmental or environment pollution, weather change, etc. You can understand the economic sector such as transport, agriculture, housing are profound impact on health. Therefore, this organization is trying to develop a mean by which they can assess the health impact due to various policy, plan, project in these diverse sections, what I just mentioned to you. And there are various tools such as qualitative, quantitative, and participatory technique. Based on that, they have organized a conference in Geneva, Switzerland in year 2013, and they are trying to discuss, trying to focus, and try to develop the tools that is important to assess the health impact. That is one thing. In the United States, the Environmental Protection Agency is taking the fourth run in that, and they start thinking that, all right, we have to implement various policy, procedure, and the method, but it is really very important to know that how much time we do spend inside. And based on that, they have sponsored the National Human Activity Pattern Survey. It is a resource for assessing exposure to the environmental pollutants. In this project, they have collected the activity pattern. They have basically built a database with the specific use of the places. As you can see in this diagram, that approximately 90% of time we spend indoor. That is very clear in this pie chart. And these data come basically, you can say in a nutshell, a telephone call survey over contacting 9,000 individuals. So this gives at least some idea that how much time we spend. Everybody tells like 90% time, but what those 90%, where we are, and that 90% or the part of the 90% indoor is clearly mentioned in this chart. Now, the National Institute of Health also recognize this as a problem, but at the same time they are trying to address it, and many times it has been noticed that the emerging diseases may link to the quality of air or environment where we dwell. Based on that, or the importance of this topic, in year 2005, Surgeon General organized a workshop on healthy indoor environment that was held between January 12 to 13 at National Institute of Health. The goal or motive of that webinar was to enhance the understanding of public health, consequences of non-industrial environments such as home, school, office, building, etc., provide information to the general public, to the Surgeon General, to the medical community, to the public health community, in terms of the building design, construction, ownership, community-wise, and a better understanding that how we can make our indoor environment more green. The goal of this workshop was to seek collaborative effort with the public health community to reduce the environmental exposure due to the various pollutants, and to gain a better understanding of public health issue, and research need to be on this topic, which can help us to understand this topic well. I believe, Ronnie, this gives a very good background of this particular topic.
I agree. And now that we've talked about that a little bit more, let's see if people are paying attention as we ask our next question. Question being, how much time do we spend living indoors? Is it 50%, 75%, 85%, or 90%? Go ahead and leave it up for about another 10 seconds. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and close the poll and see how everybody did. And it looks like we have 83% of everyone listening getting the correct answer of 90%. Now we'll go ahead and continue with the webinar. So it looks like there's a lot of information when it comes to the indoor environment, the indoor air required, or to pay attention to, Dr. Sahai. And just seeing this picture alone seems like it could be very intimidating. Could you go ahead and break it down for us a little bit more?
Sure, it's not that intimidating, Ronnie, but basically it needs to be explained so that people can understand, and that is the core of today's presentation, that I'm going to share some information on the anatomy of the building, and that's very, very essential to understand when we are trying to address the indoor environment or air quality. The building to your left is a typical diagram that is going to be very helpful for understanding like the scenario of indoor air and indoor environment. Many times, haven't you heard that out of sight, out of mind? That's what happened, and I'm pretty sure many of us deal with this situation on daily basis. What I meant, as you can see, this you can consider as a vertical section, in lack of the better word, vertical section of this particular home. What you can see in this area, you can see the very important part of the building, which is the lungs of the building. That is the heating, ventilation, air conditioning system. And most of the modern building, due to the energy conservation, is designed to artificially maintain the ventilation, and that's what is being regulated through here. You can see there is other appliances, because cleaning your clothes, etc., like a pair of washing machine and things like that is there. There is a lot of plumbing, such as like your toilet, your bowls, etc., is being fixed here. And then you have like a lot of openings, and maybe you are not seeing that, but there is like a lot of ceiling to just type the energy, like a door and your windows, etc. And then, as you can see, there is another one, like the shaft here, where the roof meets like the ceiling. Then there is also like a space where we have like crawl space or things like that. Then there is like another underneath of the building where the whole structure is sitting, is also having the soil and various kind of chemical is there, and that building can also breathe from there. And then obviously most of the breathing in the building is like come from the top of the roof. So as you can see, these lines are indicative of like how the air is flowing inside the building. Some of them are coming as a result of infiltration. Now look in the other side, like right hand side of the building. Typically this is again a vertical section from the business type of building or multi-family kind of a structure, where you can see that this arrow is telling that how the air is being circulating. So this is being done, the circulation of air and other heating, ventilation, the plumbing system, your various office stationery and the material which is used to build the structure, they all have part to the indoor environment. Some of them are like, emitting some or off-gassing various kind of compound that might be, concerned. There are a lot of biological and abiological factor due to the artificial ventilation. These all are very important, and that's why this particular topic we have chosen, so that we can show you, dissect the building, show you where what is happening. In the subsequent part, we will be also discussing that how to collect the specimen to witness it, how to address those, and what is good, what is bad. So this is a very intensive part of the whole indoor air quality and indoor air quality, and that's why we decided to present in the different sections so that you can understand it real well, real good. Now, I had given you an overall idea. When I dissect the building to show you the anatomy of building, you have now idea that there are some appliances, there are some heating ventilation system, and other building material, etc. is being used. But really, if you dissect, you will find only three major components in the building. And what are those? Air, surface, and obviously the liquid. The important part of the air component of the building includes heating, ventilation, air conditioning system, the filtration system, what we call like, the ventilation. So we have a various means to check and balance that we are not infiltrating the thing from outside. Various access points such as door and window, and obviously various gases, the airborne stuff from off-gassing the material. What is most important from the surface point of view, we have flora and fauna around our dwellings or around the buildings that might have an important role. And again, out of sight, out of mind, because we think, okay, it is like, outside flora, don't worry about it. Many a time, like, rat, mice, etc. can also penetrate. And as a matter of fact, there is a big project on this rat allergens or rodent allergens in the dwellings in Baltimore area. And I know some people work very intensely on those. Limiting wall or membrane such as sheet rock, etc. that is also very important. Furniture and fixture that is also contain a number of gases and other debris that might be concerned from the indoor environment. Equipment and machineries, obviously, like, heat emitting, some of them are like, directly or indirectly contributing to generate the contaminant. Curtains and screens, there is a lot of merchandise and consumable, especially our kitchen is a big consumable stuff. So these are the things. The water, liquid, etc. include the building water system, building disposal system, and obviously the irrigation and the runoff system is very important so far the building is concerned. Now, the other illustration, if you can divide the whole part into two, then there is indoor factor and then there is outdoor factor, and they are sometimes interact with each other. The indoor factor is like, when the problem or the contaminant, like, just indigenously generated, their nature and their origin and their impact all, like, need to be weighed in when we are trying to study the indoor environment or indoor air. We will be, talking a little bit more in the next part of the webinar. Outside environment, various pollutants due to the automobile, other, activity, human activity, their dissemination and their influensive nature.
Okay, now we're going to go ahead and launch our third question for the webinar. Should be up on the screen. What matters the most for directly, sorry, this is misspelling. What matters the most directly for indoor air? Is it HVAC, furniture and fixtures, building water systems, or none of the above? Go ahead and give everyone about another 10 seconds. We're going to go ahead and close the poll now. And we'll see that 92% of you pick the correct answer, which is HVAC. Now we'll continue with the webinar. And I believe we have some pictures to show everybody to sort of give a better idea of all the things we just talked about, Dr. Sahai.
Yes, exactly. So, like, think about the indoor environment and air, like, looks like very clean, but if you go in the buildings, HVAC, that's what you find, like a duct system, there, like, various kind of outlet, and then the flooring. This is one more stuff I want to focus, that if you do a thermographic imaging on this particular picture, you can see that tells a lot of a story, that, like, whether water leak and this and that. This is a recent technology by which we can non-invasively, like, find out if there is a problem, because there is a moisture and the temperature, then you are vulnerable to get the mold. So that's one of the thing. Other thing is that in the building water system, you should be always, like, careful about the flow, and the plumbing system should be operating in a manner it's supposed to be. And if there is any compromise there, that's not good. That can also put you on a various like problem. This particular photograph is very important, Ronnie. Here I try to illustrate that what you can handle, like you can inhale chemicals, you can inhale various kind of opaque dust, etc., type of particle, fibers, fiberglass, etc., that are breathable particle and that directly impact in your lungs. This is particularly, I'm trying to show a air sample which tells you, like, both biological and abiological. In biological factor, you have mycoplasma, you have bacteria, you have molds, you have various kind of pollen, insect scale, mite, human skin cell, etc. These are some biological factors that can be very problematic to you. A very good description and illustration I have presented in my chapter, that is chapter 6 of the book, which Ronnie has earlier explained. That book is very interesting, and I definitely encourage you to go through that book.
Okay. Now we'll go ahead to question 4. Which of the following is a known allergen for humans? Please select one. Is it chemicals, fungi, insect biodetritus, or all of the above? Give everyone about another 10 seconds. And we'll go ahead and close the poll now. And it's a good thing. It seems like we're interesting Dr. Sahai. People are paying attention and got 100%. The correct answer is all of the above. What can you tell us about optimization?
This is a very good one, because if you want to optimize your living condition, making a healthy living, sustainable living, you have to first, like, attribute the causation. If there is any problem, must be attributed. Then the better description that what is the problem, so that you can explore or you can develop a hypothesis to address that. A careful evaluation of your hypothesis. If it needs to be laboratory test call, then to a detailed laboratory finding in order to support your hypothesis. And if you address all these, then obviously you have a chance of potential growth. And the potential growth meaning the good living situation, a good productive, like, lifestyle, etc. And that helps big time in the sustainability health with development. The optimization can be summarized by enhancing the function, efficacy, hygiene, health, and comfort of a place. So this Venn diagram is explaining that there is some overlapping, and if health, comfort, and energy need to be optimized, then we must pay attention on those points which I was referring earlier.
Okay, and with that, we will launch our last question, which is optimization of indoor air quality promotes what? Building efficiency, hygiene, function, or all of the above? We'll give everyone about another 10 seconds to go ahead and answer. And we will go ahead and close the poll now. And 93% got it correct. It was all of the above. All right. I'd like to thank everybody for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed it and that you'll join us for part 2, examining a building's health, which will be held on Wednesday, June 28th at 2 p.m. This will be a generalized account on sampling, testing, and diagnostic strategies, and it will be for a better understanding of the evaluation of a building's environment and air for allergens. And here's our contact information for anyone who had further questions or needed any more information on the textbook that we had presented, or if you have any other questions that you'd like to ask us, we're always happy to talk. We'd like to thank everyone once again. We know that everyone's time is important, so we appreciate you spending it with us and viewing this webinar.
Thank you again for all of our viewers. As Ronnie said, that if anybody has any question, comment, we always interested seeking topics. If you want to hear from a particular topic of indoor environment or related field, you are welcome to submit it. The email is given there. You can contact any of the above listed people so that we can design some future important webinars. Again, thank you.